Hello, welcome to Live with Regis and wrong show. Welcome to Everyday Experts. I am your host, Kelly Ripper Joker. Tonight I have a very interesting fella that I am going to be speaking to, one I hope to gain volumes and volumes of knowledge and wisdom from. As he told me, he is well-rounded. He's almost a Renaissance man. You see that double entendre, Rob Fishbeck, if you're watching, if you're listening. I think Mr. Austin is a very interesting fellow. He's a person who I've had conversations with. I haven't had a lot of conversations with, and I didn't write down a lot of notes from his pre-interview, which means that the questions are going to be more organic, and I think it's going to make for a much funner conversation. Austin was telling us before the show that, he's from Iowa, and I want to know, what the hell is Iowa like? I don't know people from Iowa. Iowa is, to me, it's like the middle of the country, and it's a mystery. So I had this very lovely quote about cerebral palsy that we're going to get into at some point. Cerebral palsy is so limited, it cannot cripple love. What cerebral palsy cannot do, cerebral palsy is so limited that it cannot cripple love. It cannot shatter hope. It cannot corrode faith. It cannot destroy peace. It cannot limit friendship. It cannot damage memories. It cannot silence courage. It cannot control the soul. It cannot steal the eternal life, and it cannot conquer the spirit, and it cannot delay joy. As one of my frequent guests and co-hosts, Mr. Caesar, likes to talk about the things that he can do and being handy capable. I'm going to get into a bit of that with Mr. Austin Kramer tonight. So, without further ado, a paragon of greatness, a man who is bringing salt and pepper regardless to the world at a very young age, and is showing that, I'm going to start calling him LL Cool A. Ladies love Cool Austin. Mr. Austin Kramer.
What's up, Joker? How are you?
What's up, sir? Welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. We're going to get into the quote in a minute, sir. But as I like to ask all my guests, one, are you ready to go? Are you ready to take flight?
Sure, let's go.
Yes, take that. Let those butterfly wings spread, sir. If you could be a vampire, a werewolf, a wolf, a zombie, ghost, or serial killer, which would you pick and why?
Well, the easy answer is zombie, because I would just walk the way I walk now. But I would probably say vampire.
Okay. Why would we pick vampire?
I think it would be cool to, be able to control like your life. If you want to be more around people, you bite them, they become vampires with you, and then you have more friends.
So you want to glam
exactly.
all of them. I like it.
Yeah.
Let's make more friends. That's the way to go.
Exactly.
I know we talked a lot about cerebral palsy and a lot of different things before. I know I put the what cerebral palsy cannot do in your flyer, and I do want to talk about that a little bit. So I'm going to give you an option, sir. We can talk about growing up first, or we can talk about cerebral palsy first. And which one do you want to get into first?
Well, probably cerebral palsy, because that influences me growing up. So
okay. So let's start with the basics and the generics of what a lot of people don't know. What is cerebral palsy?
Okay. Cerebral palsy is contrary to what it presents as. People think it's a physical disability, but it's really a brain disorder that just manifests in physical form. So that, and honestly, that was a big challenge for me because I was like, if only, I had different legs. But as I grew up, I realized it truly wouldn't matter what legs I got. It's my brain. And there's many different forms of cerebral palsy and severity. I got lucky in the aspect that relative to other cases, mine is relatively, I think the doctors once told me it was severely mild.
That's interesting.
So whatever that means. I don't 100% know what that means, but and there's two major types. There's the type that I have that makes your muscles extremely, extremely tight. And then there's also, I have one of my best friends has cerebral palsy also, but his is a complete opposite of mine. His muscles are just noodles. And I wouldn't want to choose, but if I had to choose which type I would have, I'm glad I have the type that I have. Because I am still very mobile. It's just not, there's certain people with cerebral palsy that, have to be in a wheelchair all the time. And, can't have to walk with their walker all the time. I am very lucky in the aspect that mine is contained enough that I can walk around my house without my walker. And the only thing that happens is I fall, but I very rarely fall and get hurt. So that's a big thing, is I'll fall and 4 seconds later I'm up and ready to go. So
go ahead.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yo, I was just going to say that's cerebral palsy to me in a nutshell. And what was your question?
I was going to say, how long did it get for you to get to that mindset of, I fall down, I get right back up?
That mindset, probably 5 or 6. I was like, oh, I'm going to fall, but I'm going to get back up. But if you ask me, the mindset of accepting that I'm the way I am and there's nothing really I can do about it, that took about probably 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Where that was the biggest struggle for me, was accepting that no matter what I did, it wasn't going to change. So I would constantly throw myself pity parties. Oh, why me? Why me? Why are all my friends getting their driver's license and I don't have one? I'm a giant sports fan. So the crowd I hung out in high school with were the athletes. But, they would go out in the field on Friday night and play basketball, baseball, whatever. And I would be stuck in the stands. And that was a big challenge for me because it was taking away 2 of my loves. It was taking away the love of the sport, and it was taking away my friends, because up until a certain point, the athletes hung out with athletes, the stereotypical high school, elementary school, cliques. And unfortunately, I didn't fit into that box. So a lot of the athletes didn't want to hang out with me.
So you hung out with the athletes, and
I describe it like this. I had a couple that I was cool with. Like,
okay,
we're still friends to this day. But the narrative of it was I was around. I wasn't like, I was in the corner, in the gym. But I wasn't center stage, which, but that's also, high school and elementary school and growing up is tough. Just in general for anybody. And then you just add another layer to it that was a struggle. So
how did you feel being like, I don't want to say outcast, but like kind of in the periphery, in the background? How did that?
It was horrible. I hated it. Like, going to school and being around kids my own age was the most terrifying and disheartening thing I ever was around. Because no matter what I did, I couldn't talk about, this, and this, because I wasn't there. So that was the biggest challenge. And I was lucky, and I say the word lucky in quotations here. I was lucky that I wasn't picked on the stereotypically way, like, shoved in lockers, pushed over, that type of thing in school. I just was ignored. So I wasn't physically picked on. It was just emotionally, I was just ignored.
That had to be daunting.
Oh, yeah. I was very lucky that that in elementary school, I met my best friend to this day. I met him the first day of kindergarten. And he's still my best friend to this day, almost 30 years later. But he moved away when we were in middle school. So that left me in the very, pivotal point in life for any, growing adult, going through puberty, all that stuff by myself. But it also, looking back at it now, it forced me to get out of my comfort zone. Instead of trying to force my way into the group of people that were constantly ignoring me, I found a different group of friends, that on the surface, I probably wouldn't have hung out with, but they were nice to me.
Right.
It was instead of hanging out with the quote unquote jocks, I hung out with the theater nerds and the movie nerds and the, people that love TV, because I discovered, my physical presence doesn't affect my ability to contribute to this subject. Just because I'm disabled doesn't mean I can't talk about movies or, sports.
Yeah. Matt, bring Lego's comment back up for a second, please. You're supposed to get out of your comfort zone. I'm learning a lot. So I have a question similar to that based off that premise. Did you ever find a comfort zone? Did you ever have a point when you were like, these are my people, or I'm very comfortable, or I'm very at one?
I would probably say no. I never found that 100% comfort zone, but I got used to where I was at. And this kind of goes into what's me, the stereotypical 21st birthday that, everybody goes out with their friends and, does the thing. My high school special ed teacher is the person that took me out for my 21st birthday.
Wow.
And it's helped me now. So I hung out with the adults because I learned very early on that kids can be, kids and assholes.
Yep.
And I learned, so I learned that, hey, I'll hang out with a basketball coach. I might not be able to play basketball, but hey, if I hang out with a basketball coach, in turn, that would put me involved with a basketball team.
Mm-hmm. And then you could thank you, John Gippent. Thank you, John Bainbridge. Thank you to everybody that showed up. I don't always get to thank people for showing up, but I'm glad you showed up for Austin. This is my dude, and we're gonna keep going, sir. So, I did mention that I would juxtapose, not in a negative way or a bad way, you and Glenn, because Glenn points out that you have the same type of cerebral palsy. Interestingly enough, around 1920 was it when he kind of he got away from religion and he kind of sort of found his comfort zone groove too. Is that surprising to you, or do you think that like that 2025 is when you just come to yourself as a person, and it had less to do with your cerebral palsy, more with you as a person? Or am I totally off base?
No, I think you're 100% on base. I think it just, as you get older, you get more comfortable with yourself.
Yep.
And once you stop trying to fit in boxes that no matter how hard you try, you're not going to fit in the box. I just stopped. And I don't want to say stop caring, because I always cared. But it got to the point that I was like, I'm comfortable the way I am. From 18 to about 20, exactly. I got comfortable that I got very lucky that I met a small group of friends that were amazing. And I'm still friends with them to this day. Mm-hmm. And I just got to the point that I don't need 100 friends. Yeah. I just need a couple good ones, and I'm good. Yeah. Because I stopped trying to please everybody.
Yeah. And that's rough, because especially 18, 19, you don't always have that epiphany, where I don't need to fit in, because that's what high school is.
Yeah.
And I had a similar experience. People won't believe it, but when you're big black dude, and I'm not saying that in a bad way, but I play basketball. Yeah. So I got associated. Oh, you're one of the jocks. But I also did well in school. Oh, you're a nerd. Oh, you're the... Everybody wants to put you in a box. Everybody wants to put a label on you. And it must have been even harder for you, considering you have the cerebral palsy diagnosis and you already have 65 labels on you.
And the hardest thing for me is, and I still fight this to this day. I fought it just last week when I was doing a job interview. People look at me and look at my physical appearance and automatically assume that I have a mental disability as well. Yep. Well. And that's that. Not a lot of things make me mad, but that's one thing that makes me mad, because I worked my butt off to make it so I am a relatively smart guy. Like, I can, I had a 3.6 GPA in high school. And I hate it when people look at me and assume. So I always tell them, don't assume, ask. Mm-hmm. I would much rather you ask me, and if I don't want to tell you, I won't tell you. Mm-hmm. But if you ask me, I will tell you. I'm a pretty open book.
So I'll go back to the what cerebral palsy cannot do, because I think along the lines of what you're saying, of people assume that you have an intellectual disability because you have cerebral palsy, and most of the time the numbers are around 55, 60%. They're not. So 55, 60% of the time, fully functioning, fully intellectual. But I see that you have crutches or a walker or a gait belt, and then people are like, "Oh, you must." And this is not the word that people use anymore, but it's the way I feel like people express it. It's like people say retarded, and I know that's not the in vogue, intellectually disabled.
But you're right. That's how it was. Yeah. I don't know how. I was very lucky that I wasn't called that very often, but there were probably a handful of times in my life that I was called that.
Yeah,
and that's so.
It's not true.
It's not true, but it's a sad reality.
Yeah. So cerebral palsy is what cerebral palsy cannot do. Cerebral palsy is so limited that it cannot cripple love. It cannot shatter hope. It cannot corrode faith. It cannot destroy peace. It cannot limit friendship. It cannot damage memories. It cannot silence courage. And I want to go back to that line. It cannot control the soul. It cannot steal eternal life. It cannot conquer the spirit, and it cannot delay joy. So the two I want to focus on is that it cannot silence courage and it cannot delay joy. Do you feel that you're courageous? Because most people couldn't go a day with TP, let alone 30-something years.
Yeah. I don't classify myself as that, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
I have been very lucky that relative to other people in my situation, my life has been amazing.
Yeah.
But I've also had 27 surgeries in my life.
Jeez.
So there was many times that, the amount of pain I was in, I wouldn't wish on anybody. So I know this for a fact. 99% of the world couldn't handle the pain, physical and emotional, that I was in. It's the truth. And I'm almost thankful for my cerebral palsy because it's made me have the ability to do that. Because I can tell you right now, if I didn't have cerebral palsy, I wouldn't be the person I am today.
Oh. And it's interesting that Glenn says a similar. So full disclosure, everybody, like Rob says, I told Austin that I would be comparing him and Glenn in some aspects because similar outlooks on stuff. I'm not saying that they're the same person, but Glenn did give a similar sentiment that he felt that he was blessed to have cerebral palsy and where he's gotten to in life.
100%. I mean, I've gotten to do some amazing things in my life that if I was the quote unquote normal kid, I wouldn't have done.
Yeah.
And I've met some amazing people that if I wasn't who I am, I wouldn't have met.
Right.
Because of my passions, I would have been the stereotypical, high school jock playing every sport. I would have probably gone on and tried to do it at the next level, even if that was college, whatever. It's just the truth. In my ideal world, where I didn't have cerebral palsy, which isn't a reality, and I know that, that's what my life would be. But I don't know if I would enjoy that life. I really enjoy my life. So I don't even want to think about my life without cerebral palsy.
One of my bestest, goodest friends in the world asked, how do you emotionally cope with the pain? So just a little smidge. She's had stuff that she's dealt with that's caused pain. And I know a struggle is how do you deal with the pain? So, how do you emotionally deal with 25 years of pain?
That was a struggle. It's a little better now, but I was very lucky that I have an amazing support system in my life. And we'll get into that later. But that was a huge struggle for me, because even though I had that amazing support system, for the longest time, I felt like I was a burden. I didn't want to ask my parents or my siblings to take me places, because that would involve them stopping their lives to take me places. So I just sat at home being emotional and sad and throwing myself a self-pity party, when probably the best thing for me would to have been go somewhere, be around people, because I love people. Like, I can't imagine and that's a struggle for me right now, is I lost my job at the beginning of this pandemic. And it's been a struggle for me to find a job that fits my physical limitations and demands, and my social, my want to be around people, because I can't see I would struggle if you told me, Austin, sit at a desk all day and, type a bunch of things. Because the sad matter of fact truth is, if you judge me on my ability, like my physical abilities, I don't match up with most people. I just don't. But I make up for it with I have the ability to build relationships with almost anybody. So I might not be able to do the physical work, but I can deal with the face-to-face interactions with people all day long.
How do you find you deal with, I know you said the pain was a struggle, but you said that, one of your bigger struggles was, coping, and, did the mental health issues come up, the depression and all of that?
Oh yeah. I saw a therapist for 20 years. So I hit the trifecta. I was going to therapy for my physical well-being and my mental well-being. And I was so, and I hated school. Like, I hated it. Like, it almost got to the point where if I would have missed any more days, it would have been a problem legally.
Oh, wow.
I'll just, and it wasn't the work. It was the whole social aspect. It was the whole social aspect. And unfortunately, I had some teachers that at the time, I thought this was amazing. But looking back at it, it wasn't amazing. I had some teachers growing up that I would tell them, I can't do this. I can't do this assignment. And they'd say, okay, don't worry about it. So my friends would be at home doing homework. And because I couldn't physically do the homework, the teacher would be like, oh, don't worry about it. So at the time I was like, yes, all my friends have homework and I don't. But in actuality, it was hurting nobody but me. I wasn't learning.
No.
But I got very lucky that at every level of my schooling, I had one amazing teacher. So in elementary school, my fourth grade teacher was amazing. So he would give me special assignments that wasn't necessarily the assignments that everybody else was doing, but it served the same purpose. So instead of writing the words, you're spelling words 60 times so you could remember it, I wrote it 10 times. And in middle school, my special ed teacher was amazing. And then in high school, I had a couple really good teachers that were amazing. And they were able to push me without making me feel like I was getting special treatment. Because that's another big mental block for me. I don't want it to be obvious that I'm getting special treatment.
So you started talking about school, and I know you said you hate school. We were talking about college before.
Yes.
You don't like math.
I would say math doesn't like me. Yeah, because I would gladly do math. It just, unfortunately, thanks to technology, there's a 95% of subjects you can do in school.
Yeah.
You're able to accommodate for somebody in my situation.
Yeah.
So like in language arts, when everybody else was, writing papers and reading books, I was typing them, and I was listening to the books on audiobook. Even PE, they were able to adapt for me.
Oh wow!
To a certain point,
right.
Because they were. I was lucky in my junior year my sophomore year in high school. They came up with a program called Contract PE, which is basically the whole purpose of it was for the kids that were like taking extra classes because they wanted to graduate early and didn't want to have to take up the class time spot for PE. So they would do their PE on their own and have to log it. Well, they were able to, they gave me the log and said, you can count your physical therapy as your PE.
Wow.
So I got a PE credit without ever stepping foot in the gym, which I laugh about. But math has always been the one where, unfortunately, and it might be better now because, like I said, I haven't been in school now in 13 years. So it might be better now, but you can't do it on the computer because it's a computer.
Right.
And I told you this before, up until a certain point in school, I was really good at math because I was able to do it in my head.
Oh.
But I was only getting half credit of it because to get full credit for the answer, you had to show your work. And because I don't write the traditional way, I didn't show my work. And in college, they tried. I'll give them that credit. They tried. They gave me a student assistant. That whole thing was to write for me. And it was
I want one of those now.
Yeah. But unfortunately, when we would go to the test, I would have to, so I'd have to know the subject of the math. I'd have to know how to answer the math problem, but I would also have to know it well enough to explain it to somebody at the testing center that had no idea what I was talking about. So I felt like I was getting punished. I wasn't, but that's how that I was having to know it better than everybody else in the class because I was having to explain it to somebody that hadn't been in class all week before the test. And that wasn't the real reason I stopped going to school. The real reason was I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was just taking classes to take classes, and I went to junior college. But I was in junior college for 4 years. And it wasn't because the traditional class load for a semester at my junior college was 4 classes a semester. I was taking 2. And it wasn't because I couldn't do 4. Because it takes me longer to do things, I physically couldn't keep up with 4 classes. So I was taking 2. So by proxy, it would make me have to take it longer. Obviously, which is fine.
Right.
Story of my life. But whatever.
Take a little extra time to get to the great.
Yeah, exactly. And I took advantage of that so many times. That's a whole story for a whole nother time. Or later on tonight, it didn't really matter. And then it got to the point where I got some bad advice by a advisor. So I was there for 4 years and thought I was like 3 credits away from graduating. And I was like, I'm going to push myself and take 3 classes this semester so I can be done. I had been here 4 years. So I go in to my advisor to set up my classes for the next semester. And I was like, yeah, I think I was like 6 credits away from graduating or something like that. And I was like, yeah, I'm almost done. They're like, what do you mean, Austin? You have 9 credits to catch up on. I was like, 9? I was like, 9. Well, it turns out my advisor my freshman year at junior college, my first whole semester there, I was taking a class that I thought I was getting credit for, but they were college preparatory classes. So
there were no credits.
They were no credits.
Good.
So I was already on the edge of, I'm done with this place. I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to go work.
Right.
And I always had the mindset that I had to stop taking classes to take classes. But if I ever got a job, I don't know if this is true now because I don't know if I could go back to school. But when I was 22 and stopped going to school, I was like, if I find a job and they say, hey, Austin, we think you'd be really good at this position, but you need to go back to school and get this degree, then I am very goal-oriented. So if you tell me, hey, Austin, if you take these 5 classes and work your butt off and you'll get this degree, then you get this job. Because another struggle of mine was originally I originally wanted to go to school for early childhood development or elementary education.
Okay.
I love kids.
Oh, you can have mine. Give me
yeah. Let me preface that is I love kids because they're not my kids. I can have fun with them and then give them back to their parents. I can do the fun things and then when they're annoying, I can give them back.
Right.
That's the best part of being an uncle. And I think that also stems from kids aren't judgmental. Kids don't know. Kids aren't judgmental. And, what's the worst thing a kid's going to say? Why do you walk that way? Oh, you want to know? I will tell you why I walk this way.
Right.
But there were some barriers with that. And I am very thankful for a one of my teachers the in the education department, she sat me down one day and said, Austin, do you want me to be real with you? And I said, please. She goes, I can get you through with this degree. But what do you want to do with this degree? And I go, get a job.
Obviously.
And she goes, I want to get a job. And she goes, unfortunately, because of society, I think it will be a struggle for you to find a job just based on your disability. And the sad matter of fact truth is I understood that. Because I have my limitations. So, I totally understand why a school would struggle giving me a classroom of 20 kids.
Right.
And just for reliability reasons. I get it. And so she said, you can go work in a daycare without a degree. And I was like, you're 100% right. So that's what I did. And that I love my job until, this pandemic hit and I lost it.
So that's enough of the school talk.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your support system, because I know you had brought it up before. What were your parents like through all of this? Who do you think you got this courage that you've, shown your whole life from?
My support system, which includes, I'm the oldest of 5 kids. And my parents are amazing. They, for the longest time, growing up, they kept me from, the heartache and the bad stuff of my disability. They just did, which I'm very thankful for. But probably what I'm the most thankful for is at a certain point, they're like, Austin, this is reality. It's time for you to be in reality. So they go, time for you to figure it out. We will be here to support you when you figure it out, but we're not always going to be here to fix your problems. So you got to fix it yourself.
That's
and at the time at the time I hated that. I hated them for it. But now looking back at it, it's the best thing they ever did for me. Because it forced me to grow up.
Yeah.
And I tell people this all the time. I'm the oldest of 5, but let's rewind. I have 5 siblings and 2 of them are adopted. My 2 youngest siblings are adopted. So for about the first 15 years of my life, it was me and my 2 siblings, my younger brother and my younger sister. But the dynamic between us 3 wasn't the traditional, I'm the oldest, you're the youngest. Because of my situation, my siblings had to grow up. So, especially my sister. My sister is 2 years younger than I am, but everybody thinks she's the older sibling, which, growing up, I hated. I was like, no, I'm the oldest, but now I get it. It's 100% true. Because my siblings at the time had to learn very quickly that mom and dad aren't going to be around because they got to help Austin because he just had surgery and has cast on both his legs. So, and I tell you that story to tell you that for the longest time, even though I was the oldest, I wasn't acting that way and I wasn't treated that way.
Do you think it was more you didn't act that way, or more you weren't treated that way, or was it like a
I didn't act that
of both?
I didn't act that way so that I wasn't treated that way. I think if I acted that way, my parents would have treated me that way.
Yeah.
But I didn't act that way. You know, that this is funny now, but we would be sitting in the living room and I would want a glass of water, but I would purposely wait until somebody else got up from the living room to get something else and ask for a glass of water.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to get up and get it. You know, and sure, I might not be able to get the traditional glass of water and walk it to the, you know, kitchen table, but I can sure get a bottle of water from the fridge, an unopened bottle of water, and take it to the. And that was also a challenge for me is getting to the point where I wanted to accept that I couldn't do things the traditional way. And just simple things. I didn't want people to know that I couldn't tie my shoes. I still can't tie my shoes.
Okay.
So I would get shoes and have my parents tie them every morning. You know, and I would put on jeans and I can't do snaps. But but then it got to the point where I was having to take my shoes off, and I always tell this story, and him and I have got to the point where we had a really good understanding. But when I was in 6th grade, the first unit in PE was swimming. And so we were supposed to go swimming at the city pool, blah, blah, blah. And I went up to the teacher, and this was really hard for me, but I had to do it. And I went up to the teacher and said, I don't know if I can participate in this unit. And he basically yelled at me and basically said, that's a bunch of crap. He goes, I had this student that had no legs that completed the swimming unit.
Oh, wow.
But it wasn't, I love swimming. Swimming is one of my favorite activities. It was, I didn't want to be the 15-year-old kid in the locker room that couldn't tie his shoes. So it took my mom, and my mom has been a teacher for 33 years, 35 years. So that was the biggest help for me when it came to school, is that's my mom's profession. So she knew what to ask for. So she met with the principal and the PE teacher and said, actually, Austin loves to swim and he's really good at it. He just didn't want to be the 15-year-old boy who couldn't tie his shoes. But that was also on me because I was too proud to get the untieable shoes. I didn't want to be made fun of because I had the, zip tie shoes. But now it's like, if you want to make fun of me for my shoes, go for it.
Yep.
Whatever.
How long did it kind of get to that mindset? Because a lot, you're saying lucky, you expressed you feel lucky a lot and always having to be understanding. So do you feel like you always have to be understanding of situations, of people, of environments?
Yes. And that, because you put me in a situation, and the first thing I think of is where are going to be my struggles and how do I get around them?
Yeah.
That's the first thing I think of, is oh, okay, I'm in a group with, I'm in a restaurant that is very tight and has a bunch of tables around it. So obviously, I'm not going to, my walker's not going to be able to fit through all these tables. So if I have to go to the restroom or go talk to somebody, how am I going to get around? And that's the first thing I think of is, oh, I might not be able to use my walker, but I can use the tabletops to get from point A to point B. Or I say this, I might not be able to do something physical, but I might not be able to do task A that is expected of me, but I can do task A that's expected of this person. So what if we swap? And I just got very good at thinking, okay, I can't do this the quote unquote traditional way. And I hate saying that, but it's the truth. I hate using the word traditional because there's no such thing. There's no such thing. It's just the way people have done it for years and years. That doesn't make it the right way. That doesn't make it the wrong way. It's just how it is.
Right.
So all the time, any situation you put me in, physically or emotionally or socially, I'm like, okay, what's my limitations here?
Right.
How can I either make it so my limitations aren't a thing, or how can I use my limitations to my best ability?
Yep. You have to adjust. You have to adapt.
Yes.
And go to a hotel and there's a shower and the shower head is at my chest. I got to deal with it.
Exactly.
It's a silly example, but
it's 100% true. I don't know how many times that I've had to go into a hotel and sit in the shower and take a shower sitting down, which I hate, but there's no grab bar. Or if there's a grab bar, it's to my knees, so that does me no good.
Bring up John's comment, please. The amount of problem solving people with physicality issues must have to do on a daily basis is kind of mind-blowing. So let's play a fun game. How many times a day do you think you have to problem solve something physically for you?
Lately, not a lot.
Okay.
And it's because I am at my house a lot. And my house is specifically set up for me to be successful. But in my daily life, I don't know how many times, and this is things that people don't think about. I don't know how many times I go to businesses and their handicap accessible parking or their handicap accessible ramp isn't in the ideal location. And again, people that don't have a physical disability don't have to think about this. How many times do you realize public sidewalks suck? Because they're all rough and the cement is cracked.
Yep.
For the layman person, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But for me walking down the street, if I'm not looking down, I'm going to trip on this broken cement and fall on my face.
Yes. That must be quite annoying.
It's just simple things like that where I can and people are like, oh, why don't you complain? It's like, because I can totally understand why people don't think about this. Because you don't have to, if somebody's sidewalk is a little cracked, it's not their top priority to have it fixed.
Yep.
Because it doesn't affect their daily life. And I say that, and I say that I don't fall all the time because I'm just self-aware of, oh, there's a crack, so I gotta be careful. It's made my self-awareness of my surroundings amazing. Or just simple things like what's a big one? Oh, so handicap accessible like ramps.
Mm-hmm.
I always laugh at them when they're the furthest thing away from the handicap parking. That makes no sense. Why is handicap parking over to the right when the ramp is to the left?
See, things you don't think about.
Oh, yeah. And again, not a big deal because I've had to deal with it my whole life. Yes. But it's just simple things that I have to think about on a daily basis that when the person's making the building, they're like, oh, as long as we have a handicap accessible ramp, we're good, right?
We got a ramp.
That's all. We got a ramp, so we're ADA compliant, right?
Yeah.
So we're not going to get sued and fined.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But if it's over here and handicap parking's over here, then I still have to walk
across the parking lot. Huh?
Across the parking lot and temporarily get run over by a car.
No. And they're never conveniently set up for ease to like walk up, or if you have a wheelchair, because I've dealt with wheelchairs and walkers and all that stuff when I'm taking people on appointments, and I'm just like, dude, first of all, I'm 6'5", so pushing a wheelchair, and if I can't do it, then it's going to be hard for somebody who is not necessarily physically able to do it. So let's transition a little bit. We've been hearing the Austin life story today, and it's amazing. Let's talk about some funicity.
Okay.
Now, this has been a phenomenon for years in this Harry Potter shit. You said your favorite film franchise is Harry Potter.
It's the one that I watch the most.
Okay.
Is it the best film franchise? No. But is it the one that I fall back on the most? Probably.
Yeah.
Which I find funny because and it all goes back to Harry Potter was the first book that I read, quote unquote, because I didn't read it. And when I say I didn't read it, it wasn't because I didn't want to. Part of my cerebral palsy, at least for me, it's not necessarily for every case of cerebral palsy, is I have trouble tracking things with my eyes. It's one of the reasons I don't drive. So when there's a lot of words on a page, I lose my place.
Right.
So a page that should take somebody 3 minutes to read takes me 10. And so I just get frustrated and don't read it. But, I was trying to do math. So Harry Potter came out in 97. So I was in third grade, fourth grade. And I could be wrong with the date, but it was the first thing that was the rage, the popular thing to do that I could actually do. There was the only limitation that I had that the quote unquote normal person didn't have is the tracking. But again, my amazing support system, my mom read me those books.
Oh, wow.
Read me the first book. She would read me the book.
Wow.
So I was able to go home, or I was able to go to school and talk to kids my own age for the first time
That's awesome.
about something that everybody was talking about. And I didn't feel left out for the first time. So, and I tell you that story because, and I think that looking back at it now, I think that's why Harry Potter has a special place in my heart, because it wasn't necessarily the material. It was the stuff around it, that the ability for me to be like a normal kid. Because I learned very quickly, and it's the reason I have my love of movies. Because I had 27 surgeries in my life, I spent a lot of time in my bed. So, what does somebody do when they're in their bed for 2 months at a time? Oh, I'm going to watch movies. So that's what I did. Because I learned because again, I stopped trying to fit in a certain box and fit in a different box. So I found ways to make friends differently than I originally wanted to, but it served its purpose. So that's why Harry Potter has always been my favorite franchise. It's not necessarily for the content, which is amazing, but I think it's the extracurricular stuff that it allowed me to do.
Do you feel like Harry resonates with you, and how? I don't know I don't know all the Harry Potter facts.
I will help you with this. The answer is yes, because he was always outcast. Because he had the scar on his face, and everybody, oh, that's the guy with the scar. The minute I walk into a room, people know I walk in a room, and for the longest time, it wasn't because I was an amazing person. And Austin's in the room. It was, there's the kid with cerebral palsy that makes noise when he walks because he has his walker. Right. So, like, when I originally read the book, that's not what I thought. But, I've probably reread or listened to the book probably 30 times in my life now. So looking back at it, he was probably a kid that everybody didn't want to be around, and everybody thought was the plague because he had a scar, and he survived death, and nobody wanted to be his friend. So
So you said Harry Potter. I know you were telling me about the house craft, the test you can take and figure out what house you are. What house are you, and what does that even mean?
And to be honest, I don't really know.
Okay.
What it truly means. I used to, but again, as I've gotten older, I've gotten other interests, so I've lost some context. But growing up, I always wanted to be a Gryffindor because
Supreme. Oh, wrong.
Yeah, exactly. I want to be that too because that was awesome. Because having magical powers would fix all my problems.
Right.
I can't drive, but if I had magical powers, I could fly.
Yes.
So, so I wanted to be a Gryffindor, but I think if I took the test today, I would probably be a Hufflepuff.
And what does that mean?
What's the best way to describe this? And if somebody can in the chat is more well versed in what this means.
Oh Lord! All right, Lego, Glenn, one of y'all.
Yeah.
What a Hufflepuffle Luffagus is.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you what a Gryffindor is. A Gryffindor is known for like and honestly, probably I would probably be a Gryffindor now thinking about it because they're the courageous ones, the ones that are willing to stand up for the little guy, which is me.
Right.
Because I was disabled.
For hard work. Propensity. I don't know what that means, Lego. Just kidding.
And that's why I said I was probably a Hufflepuff, because my whole life is hard work.
Yeah.
So I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah.
And I'm very loyal because I know what it's like to not have friends. So I am very loyal to the people that are loyal to me. Okay. So that's why probably a Hufflepuff. But the Gryffindors are very like courageous, standing up for the little guy, which is me also, because I know what it's like to be picked on.
Mm-hmm.
When I see somebody that's being picked on, I'm like, okay, that's not cool.
Right.
Let's stop that and let's try to figure out common ground here. So that's probably the answer to that question.
I love it. This is one of those things that I know nothing about. So we'll move into something that's a little bit more well known, unless you have more. Your heart wants to tell me about Harry Potter.
No.
Okay.
We're good.
Am I the old man? Am I Dumbledore? No, Bainbridge. I'm older than you, or we're the same age. You said you like Fast and Furious, but I really want to talk. You talked about how your mom kind of bribed you with popcorn, but how she was the one that was the impetus for you to start liking movies and stuff like that. Was that in combination of you hanging out with like the theater and movie nerds?
Probably, because again, because I think I get my love of sports from my dad. Okay. Like today my mom's out of town with some friends, so I just spent 7 hours at my dad's house watching college football, and I loved it. Right. It was awesome. But probably my love of movies actually not necessarily came from my mom, but it actually came from my grandfather on my dad's side, because I didn't he loved movies, and so he had a bunch of movies at his house. So my favorite thing to do when I went to his house is to pick a movie I hadn't seen. Mm-hmm. And I laugh about this now, because he was, at the time in his 50s and 60s. Don't get me wrong, I watched the traditional like kids movies, Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, Transformers, watch those, love those. But I was 8 years old watching Die Hard. I was,
Doesn't every 8-year-old?
Yeah. I watched Rambo at 9 years old. Nice. So, because again, and unfortunately, it all comes back to I spent a lot of time by myself. Yeah. Because of situations out of my control, mainly my cerebral palsy, which led to 27 surgeries in my life. Yes. So I would watch a movie, and so I'd watch the quote unquote age appropriate movies, and then my mom and dad would be like, we'll watch a movie with you, but we're not watching one of those movies. We'll watch the adult movies. Mm-hmm. So we did. And I told you before we started, I've went to my fair share of rom-coms in the movie theater, because my mom didn't want to go by herself, so she'd be like, "Hey, Austin, you want to go with me, and I'll buy you popcorn." Okay. So if the movie sucks, at least I get free popcorn.
What was your favorite rom-com you watched with your mom?
I don't know if I could actually pick one.
Okay.
Because again, there was never one that stuck out.
Okay.
But, I think I was laughing. The movie Sweet Home Alabama with Reese Witherspoon. Okay. I've probably seen that movie as a 32-year-old man. I've probably seen that movie 11 times. And it wasn't by choice.
Sure.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what I'm going to say publicly. It wasn't by choice. But my mom is flipping through. She's like, "Oh, Sweet Home Alabama's on." So, I'll be like, "Oh, okay. I'll sit down with you and watch it for a little bit." 2 hours later, I've seen it again. I'm like, it sucked me in again.
Yeah.
Whatever. So it's just funny. But it's like anything else. That my taste in music is all over the place too.
Okay.
And that stems from my dad's rule, and I say rule in quotation marks because it wasn't really a rule, but it's just what he said. The person driving gets to pick this radio station.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm a 32-year-old man that's never driven. So I've had family members drive me everywhere.
Yeah.
Which in turn means I don't get to pick the radio station. And I have 4 siblings who have 4 different personalities. So, I have a sibling that's big into country music. Oh. So there's country music that I like. I have a sibling that's big into hip hop. So hip hop. There's tons of hip hop songs I like. My dad's big into sports talk radio. Mm-hmm. So I can sit here for hours and listen to somebody talk sports.
Mm-hmm.
I have a sister who's big into, Christian rock. So, and then my mom's into, like the top 100. So mm-hmm. People ask me, what's your favorite music? And it's, I don't have one. Yeah. It's everything. Yeah. Like, I can tell you if there's a song in a genre that I don't like, but I have so many songs in every genre that I'm like, oh, this kind of rocks.
You seem to have a lot of things and, where you get lost. Because when you're in the bed all the time, I'm recovering, you want to get lost in the world.
Yes.
Get lost in the universe. Do you have like a creative outlet, a hobby where you're creating your own world that you kind of get lost in? Or is it more, I like to read or I like to write or whatever?
And the truth of the matter is, I would probably say if it was physically possible for me to do mm-hmm. certain things, I would do them. But I'm not creative. Like, I have creative thoughts sometimes, mm-hmm. but I never put them down on paper because it's the physical function of writing them down or typing them on a sheet of paper.
Right.
So I have a very good imagination. Mm-hmm. And but I have a hard time switching off the part of my brain where it's like, oh, I would love to do that. But again, the first thing I think of is the physical, my limitations.
Yeah.
And that can be a bad thing because I need to get better at just going with the flow with that type of thing.
Right.
But it's kind of a defense mechanism in my brain that I've had is I would rather be the person to say, oh, I can't do this because of this than for me to do something, and then somebody else tell me, oh, you can't do that because of this. So I always think of the bad things first.
Right.
It's just how my brain's wired. And I think it's a defense mechanism. I know it's a defense mechanism because it's like, it's the age-old adage, I'm going to break up with you before you break up with me.
Yeah.
I'm going to break up with you before you have the ability to break up with me because I know it's coming.
Yeah.
So that so I think I do have a creative like mindset some of the time, but unfortunately I don't get to execute it because of the other part of my brain is like, nope, not going to.
Right.
It's like I loved art class. Like I loved the concept of art class.
Right.
But I also hated it because I physically couldn't do it. Like I love the concept of something, but I also hate it because I love it, like, and I say like a lot. That's a struggle.
That's all right. Like's a great word. It's a good transition word.
Whenever we would do an art project, I'd be like, that's a cool idea. That's an awesome idea. Then the execution of it, didn't look like the model.
Right.
Which in turn pissed me off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm also kind of a perfectionist. Because I can't do a lot of things, the things I can do, I want to do really, really well.
Is that fair to you, or does that put unrealistic or hard expectations on you?
I think it does somewhat.
Okay.
But I also think I am very good at knowing what I can and cannot do.
Right.
So I'm not going to have myself do something that I know I can't do.
Right.
Because I don't want to have the self pity party of actually trying to do something and not being able to do it. I have enough of that in my outside life. I don't need to do that to myself.
Yeah.
So if something I can't do, I just don't do it.
Okay.
That's just how I live my life. So the things I can do, I try to do to the best of my ability.
Right.
Because there's so many things in life that I can't do.
As we kind of wrap up, if you could go back, talk to 7-year-old, 8-year-old Austin, what life advice would you give to yourself?
I am very lucky that I've actually had the ability to do this for other kids. Because in order to get me to do physical therapy for the longest time, my physical therapist realized that I would enjoy it better if I was with somebody else.
Yes, that makes sense.
And they would purposely put me with somebody younger. Because they knew that's just my personality.
Right.
So to answer your question, I would tell 7-year-old Austin, it's going to be okay. It's going to suck. You're going to have times that are the worst times in your life. Like I've had some of the worst times that I would not wish on anybody. But I also went looking back at it.
Right.
It's what made me me.
Yeah.
I have a tattoo on my ribcage that says, "You laugh because I'm different. I laugh because you're all the same."
Yes. I love that.
And my challenges in life were challenges. And they sucked. And there were many, many times where I was just done.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm done. And I had some very, 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 very dark thoughts in my life that I was like, I'm over this. It would be better if I wasn't here. But looking back at it now, me going through those hard times, my life now is amazing. I live on my own in my own house. I pay my own bills. I have amazing friends. I love my life. Yes.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
But in all seriousness, everybody in this chat is one of those people that, let's be real, if I wasn't stuck in my house because of my disability and had to wait for the quote unquote perfect job and couldn't just go get the job at McDonald's because I physically can't do that, I wouldn't have been sitting here just dying for social interaction and joining this group.
True.
So it's the truth. So 7-year-old Austin just needs to know that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Your life now is amazing. There's always stuff that I need to work on. And you just need to know that just because people are jerks and you think your life is over because you can't be a 14-year-old driving a 1991 beat up Chevy truck.
Right.
Doesn't mean your life sucks. I got to do some amazing things. I got to go on a Make-A-Wish trip that blew my mind because I made assumptions, which I hate, that the Make-A-Wish Foundation is for kids that are dying. That's what I thought. But if you actually look up the Make-A-Wish Foundation, it's youth and some adults, but mainly youth, that have life-altering diseases. And I have a life-altering disease. It's the truth.
Right.
It was really hard for me to come to grips with that. That because of my disability, my life isn't going to be quote-unquote normal. But what's normal?
A setting on a drug.
Yeah, I've never met a normal person. And quite frankly, I don't want to. Because they'd be boring.
Oh, yeah. 100%. If you could have your way, so let's say you could go forward in your life, you had one wish. Would you want, and you could get rid of your CP, would you want to?
No. And it's taken me 32 years to get this to this point. But I fully believe that if I didn't have cerebral palsy, my life might be just as good, but it might be worse.
Right.
It might be worse. There's a 50-50 chance.
Right.
It might be worse. Right. So I'm not going to risk the life I have for a life that I don't have.
I feel you. So, sir, last question. I'm 35 years old and still. You can bring it back up. Please, sir. 35 years and still struggles. And more power to you, Austin. Yes, Austin, dropping jewels. Last question, Mr. Kramer. If you could be any superhero or supervillain, who would you be and why? And you can pick both if you want.
Okay. I would supervillain, and I'm not just saying this, Joker. Come on.
That's it. That's all we need to know. We don't even know anything else.
He's just so fun.
Yeah.
He gets away with so much.
Yeah.
And, getting to wear all that cool makeup isn't cool either, too.
Yeah.
But the answer is Joker.
Of course it is.
Superhero? Spiderman?
Interesting. Why Spiderman?
Because I just love, because I think unfortunately a lot of the superheroes now, how they're portrayed now, are just so serious, and everything's doom and gloom. Spiderman's a teenage kid.
Yeah.
And he's worried about things that at 32 I'm still worried about. And, let's have fun. I'm worried about, is the girl going to like me?
Yeah.
I don't want to be Batman. I don't want to be the, I would love the money, but Batman has his problems.
He has a lot. Especially his Joker, but
Yeah,
That's right. Why so serious?
And Superman, he's too perfect.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that perfect. What?
I feel you, brother. I hear you 100%. All right, Mr. Kramer, we've accomplished the task at hand. You
got any questions about Iowa that you wanted to get through?
We can talk about Iowa real quick if you want, sir.
It's up to you.
Okay.
I just know you had a bunch of... And I guess the best way to put this is Iowa can be a lot of things.
Yeah.
Iowa can be the stereotypical, when you think of Iowa, cornfields, farms, because there's a lot of that. But I am a city kid. I've grown up in the Des Moines, which is the capital city, metroplex, my whole life.
Yeah.
So I have we have 5 movie theaters in my town. We have a good bar scene. We have professional sports teams. So I would describe Des Moines or Iowa as it's probably the best of both worlds, because if you want to be a city person, you can be a city person. But if you want to live in the middle of nowhere in a shack with cows and ducks and corn, you can do that too.
Why would you want to do that?
I am very lucky that I have the best of both worlds, because my parents are from rural Iowa. So my grandfather owns an acreage of 16 acres. That is just acreage. So it has a house and then a pond and then land everywhere, which is amazing. I love going there because when there's not a lot of things to hit, that means Austin can drive. So I get behind the wheel of either an ATV, a golf cart.
Yeah.
If they really are feeling Austin's very good today, they give me an old beat up car and say, "Go to town."
I love it.
Story of my life. It's awesome.
I love it.
And I've only run over a couple trees that they know of.
Oh, so here's my real last question. Have you ever gone cow tipping?
No.
Okay. When I found that was actually a real thing, I was just like, oh boy.
It is a real thing.
I know.
It is a real thing, and I know people that have done it. Probably the most like stereotypical thing that I've actually ever been a part of is you go to a dead end street that is like newer construction.
Okay.
You take a golf club, golf balls, and you hit them down the street and try to hit the porta potty that's that's at the other end of the street. Entertaining, right?
Oh my God.
But again, these are just things that I've seen because disability, can't do it. So it's the best of both worlds. Austin can't get in trouble because Austin physically can't do it. But Austin can get the enjoyment of watching other people doing it.
Yes. Well, Mr. Kramer, we're gonna have to do a part 2 and get into some other stuff more into Iowa and your shenanigans. I got
stories for days, Joker. So anytime.
Thank you for coming on Everyday Experts. I appreciate you. You hang out for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
So next week we have the basketball roundtable, and we're gonna have some fun talking about hoops and stuff like that. Yes, and then the 29th is Max Williams as we steamroll into the end of the year. And 2022 slate is going to be a little psycho too. Beautiful has nothing to do with looks. It's how you are as a person and how you make others feel about themselves. I want to say that's Austin Kramer 2021, but Matt said it better. My life is awesome. So, thank you for tuning in to Everyday Experts. Live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Joker out.